Such a funny voice.
Hi.
Um, welcome to the info call for MyColores 2025. We have Alissa Allen with us. My name is Zach,
And
and
I'm Kim.
Kim and I are the Fungivore, and we're really excited to be entering into what is now our sixth season in 7 years in Oaxaca. And it's just been really great. And I actually have put together a little presentation to introduce everyone to Mexico.
All right.
Our second info call
We're
of
getting
the
it down.
year. So if we're a little bumpy, it's we're getting better.
So Kim and I are the Fungivore, and as I said, this will be our seventh year in Mexico doing mushroom foraging adventures. And my background is as a chef, and about 13 years ago or so, I moved to California and got introduced to basically the professional mushroom world, and started cooking and lecturing, and that kind of has evolved into tourism here in Mexico. And I met Kim 6.5 years ago, and we were both kind of on our way to Mexico separately when we met.
And I fell in love with mushrooms when I fell in love with Zach. And thankfully, there's also a fiber arts world of that, and got to meet Alissa. So I love textiles. I love handicrafts. I have my own artisan business called Traveling Traders, where we do immersions with embroidery, natural dyeing, as well as mushroom dyeing. So this is a joint trip between, both Zach and I, and it's our two passions combined,
Yeah.
which we love.
So it actually all started. We were following Alan Rockefeller, and we ended up in the Cuajimoloyas Mushroom Festival in 2019. This at that point had been running for 19 years straight, and it just blew our mind.
The headphone stuff. I think, did you disable something when we went to my head?
There we go.
Just gonna move.
We're just gonna mute you guys. And we ended up at the Cuajimoloyas Mushroom Festival, and I was like, oh my God, there's a whole culture of mushroom stuff here. And that really kicked off our desire to do 3 events in 2020, which didn't happen. As you may have noticed, something happened in 2020 that got in the way of groups. But we came back, and in 2021 did another adventure, and then in 2022 had Alissa come to begin our fiber journeys. So we're here tonight. This video is about the MyColores Sierra Norte forage and dyeing the wild colors of Oaxaca with Alissa. This is happening this August 20th, August 12th to 20th. And so please stay tuned to learn more about that. This is Alissa Allen. Alissa, you can unmute yourself and say hi. We'll get to Alissa. Will be able to talk a little later as well. I have to ask to unmute her. Can't hear you.
Hey. I'm so excited to be returning, and this is a great program.
Yeah.
You can carry on.
Excited to come back.
So before we get into the details, I do want to give a little overview of Mexico, because a lot of Americans view Mexico as the beach. That is sort of what I had grown up knowing. As you can see, Mexico is actually the only southern neighbor of the United States. And unlike the US, which has plains and fields and several mountain ranges, Mexico is kind of a continuation of the Rockies, although it is, of course, divided into several mountain ranges, but it is mostly mountains. Most of this continent is the mountains that feed down into a short beach area around the edge. And so, being into mushrooms, we spend more of the time in the mountains than we do on the coast. Mexico is, to some Americans, they didn't realize it's the United States of Mexico. There are 31 states, and the Mexico City itself, which used to be a federal district, but is now its own spot. That's so 31 states. And today we're going to be talking about Oaxaca, which you can see all the way down there in the south. Oaxaca is the second most southern state, with Chiapas being the bordering Guatemala. And Mexico is also known for its indigenous groups. And Oaxaca in the bottom you can see is Zapoteco, and that is actually who we will be in the mountains with during our trip. So Oaxaca is a mountainous state. It is about several places well over 10,000 feet. We will be in some of those places on this trip, which is pretty amazing. And yes, it is a little hard to breathe up there, but it's worth the views. Oaxaca has a very old history. Some of the prehistoric caves that have been found here have evidence going back 12,000 years, about 10,000 BC, where there early evidence of pumpkin cultivation and later corn cultivation from Teosinte. The valley itself, Oaxaca now has been divided into 8 regions, and a lot of these 8 regions are following some of these linguistic groups that exist around Oaxaca. Those caves and where we'll be are in the Valles Centrales and in the Sierra Norte Mountains, which you can see in the middle of Oaxaca, which are dominated by the Zapotecs. But as you can see, there are 16 different language groups all through Oaxaca, and all of these have really rich, amazing histories and traditions, and many of them are mycophilic and really into mushrooms. So we're primarily going to be working with Zapotecs, and the Zapotecs were no spring chickens. These guys were around for a long, long time. What you see on your lower left is Monte Alban. It is about 18% excavated for the size. It is absolutely massive. And what you're also looking at around is various ruins from up and down the Central Valleys, which is only a small portion of the Zapotec Empire, which extends all the way to the coast as well. So these are all still visible. We actually can see one of these, Monte Alban, you can see from Oaxaca City. It's towering right there above the city the entire time, talking about the resilience of these cultures. So in 2022, we invited Alissa to come for the first time, and we went back to Cuajimaloyas, of course. And this is some of the folks that we met during that time. Alissa in the corner, and this is Marta Contreras in the middle, one of the herbalists and foragers.
And I believe Marcus and Cindy, who are or Marcus, who's on the call, was on that trip as
That
well.
is right. Marcus was on that trip. And one of the amazing, studious children that knew how to find all of the mushrooms. And at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Kim and to Alissa to sort of walk us through the trip.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we are just so excited to return the Sierra Nortes for MyColores with Alissa this year. I might just let Alissa, do I have a slide with Alissa already on it, or this is it?
That's it.
I might just let Alissa share a little more about her experience with us and in the Sierra Nortes, and then I can share more about what we have planned for this year.
Hi, everyone. So this has just been a really exciting opportunity for me to travel and learn. I learn as much as I teach on these forays. And so to go to a place that I've never been and forage mushrooms I may have never seen and be able to experiment and make rainbows fills my soul in ways I can't even explain. And sharing that with the people who are dyers or fiber artists or just mushroom hunters in general, in these communities that we stay with, it's just a really fulfilling exchange. Working with the local fibers too. You know, you get to see the whole process from sheep to the finished dyed product. And then Kim has made a few beautiful examples of mushroom dyed textiles as well.
Well, it's been a pleasure to, hi, Betsy, welcome.
Hi, sorry.
No worries.
Betsy, it's being recorded, so after the end of this, we're going to send you a copy of the full talk as well.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and Alyssa, I have to say, it's been incredible to learn from you over these last 4 years. And also for us, you know, for us, MyColores this year, we're focusing exclusive on the Sierra Nortes and really focusing both on wool that we source from a local women's collective in Teotitlan, as well as silk, because we have the opportunity to work with and go foraging with a silk sanctuary, a village that has a silk sanctuary, San Pedro Cajonos. And last year was our first year to get to do a mushroom dye demo for them, because one of the days that we will spend in the Sierra Nortes, we will be at the silk sanctuary and learn more about the process. And we'll get to work with the natural dyes that they work with, which includes cochineal, which is an insect, a powerful red dye, indigo, and pericone. And that we get to experiment with that. And when they saw the mushroom dyes, because we did our own little demo, they said, we can't wait to go into the forest. And so this year, we're really excited to come back and go bring some of those ladies into their own forests to really learn this other layer of natural dyeing, because so many of these artisans use traditional natural dyes, but to get to showcase this is a real treat. And for us as as an experience to get to offer both doing a day of wool dyeing in El Carrizal, where we'll be posted for 3 nights, as well as to get to experiment with silk is really exciting for me. Zach also pointed out Monte Alban is part of the ruins that are part of the Oaxacan landscape, which we're going to kick off our first full day getting to go to Monte Alban with an incredible guide, Monzi, who really gives us an understanding in depth of the place and the history of where we're going to spend our time. And then we'll get to go back up and go to Coajimoloyas our first night, which Zach showed was where we all got started, and where it was Alyssa's first place to forage in the Sierra Nortes. So we'll be in Coajimoloyas, which is sort of the premier mushroom town. We'll be in Llano Grande, which is another small town, and then we'll be in El Carrizal, in a total for 6 nights in the mountains, 3 4A days, and a full dyeing day, as well as some dye projects when we get back in the afternoon. But I really envisioned this time. In the past and other years, we combined it with weaving, and for us, we just really wanted to be in the forest and I dreamed of having my own outdoor dye studio in the mountains. And so last year we put all together the equipment to do that, and it worked quite well, Alyssa, I think. I'll have to review the list of things I definitely needed, but that's why we always are learning. And excited to have all of you in the mountains with us. I also wanted to note that one of the great things about the Sierra Nortes is the forays are really quite manageable. We're not dealing with hugely steep areas or really long forays too. So I think it's also just nice 4A days to go forage for lots of mushrooms, because it will be on gusto there.
Yeah, and there will be an opportunity to swim if you can tolerate cold water during that time. And I think every year more people go in out of the group each year. It's funny. It's not like they influence each other, but every year there's more people going in. So
yeah, I mean, the nature of the Sierra Nortes is incredible, and one of those pieces of nature is a swimming hole in El Carrizal. El Carrizal, which is the last town we'll stay in, is also a town of bakers, and so wheat growers. So we really get to also see what a campo and sort of what growing food locally and sustainably looks like, because they will be in full swing, and we'll get to eat that every day with home cooked meals from our hosts. And yeah, I'm really excited to share the Sierra Nortes with all of you.
Well, one of the things that makes the Sierra Norte so special is that, and this is one of the earliest ecotourism projects in Oaxaca, is that all of the villages we stay in, and actually I think there's 9 total villages, they all have these really wonderful adobe cabins that have fire heated adobe cabins, and they'll bring you wood every night and even start the fire for you. And so our accommodations are this really warm, held, lovely spaces, which is one of the reasons we love going to the Sierra Nortes.
Oh, I'm just admitting more people.
Oh, folks are coming in.
If you just joined us, we are recording this, and we will send you the full recording. So we are just sort of wrapping up talking about the trip. Is there one more for how to join right now, or?
So Rebecca came with us last year, and we're trying out. Yeah, we love seeing people's faces, and really, it's hard to quantify how much fun we have on these trips, or what little things you learn along the way. And we thought that this picture really summed that up really well. So if you have not already, the steps to apply for this trip or any of our trips is to go to the Fungivore. Every trip has its own page, so you can review that. We will embed this video on that page later on, and so you can always go back and see that. You apply there. We have a Google form to fill out, and a lot of it's for us to get to know you, your allergies, any kind of concerns you may have, also what you're excited about, your experiences in the past. And once we review that, there's a spot on there for you to indicate if you want to call or if you're just ready to go. And if you want to have a call, we'll schedule that. And then you submit your payment and you are good to go. And that is how you can come with us and Alissa to Oaxaca.
And that is the end of our presentation. Does anybody have any questions or anything they'd like to
I do. So I might be interested in 2026. Do you anticipate that you would, because I have to, I'm going to Morocco um in the fall, so this
I'm
fall,
very excited for your trip to
2025.
Morocco.
So yeah. So uh I was,
We haven't
yeah,
determined our schedule in 2026. I think
okay.
we would love to include mushroom dyeing, but
Mhm.
we are not set on what 2026 is going to look like right now.
But yes,
Okay,
there will
yeah.
be mushrooms and there will be dying. And
In 2020.
I
and I say that because like our culinary tours, Kim does some dyeing on the culinary tours as well,
mm,
as we do some cooking on the color tours. And so there's always a blend of both of her textile passion and my food passion. And yeah, we're just not sure exactly the schedule because we're working on
okay,
25 right now.
yeah.
But
Well,
we'll be hosting groups doing mushrooms. That'll all be happening in 2026.
okay. Yeah, great. Well, I Alyssa's taught me before and she's great. So
I know.
yeah,
Good
it's
to see you, Betsy.
hi, good to see you. Yeah, it's I've done actually a little bit more foraging this year because or 2024 in the fall here because uh there was an abundance of mushrooms, right? Alyssa?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's been a great
yeah,
year.
it was great.
And
So
we just
it's
got our
fun.
first frost or first
Yeah.
snowy weather. So it was going all the way through
Wow.
December and into
That's
January.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
crazy. So anyway,
Well,
I have some.
Dorothy or Beth, any questions? Marcus, any questions?
Yes, I have some questions.
Great.
So on the trip, are you only dyeing yarn or will you dye fabric swatches also?
As of right now, we are working with skeins of wool and
Mm-hmm.
working with mini skeins of silk threads. We don't typically, and we also actually have a project with a silk scarf. So one of the activities we do is a silk scarf. So that is, and that, are you asking if you can bring things to dye? Or
I guess I feel like as part of the dye experience, I would want to be able to have sorry, we just set off the smoke alarm. My husband's turning it off. I would want to be able to bring like something home that maybe I can use later. And I just think if it's all skeins of yarn, that might not happen. Like so if you were like, oh, if you wanted to bring squares and make a color, like that would be great. But yeah, that was what I was thinking.
yeah, so you will bring a scarf with you, and you'll bring a scarf
There's smoke in the bedroom.
into the skeins. And we could talk about if you want to bring some of your own fiber. It really depends on the weight of the mushrooms as well as what fiber you want to dye. Because like cottons don't take it well, so you'll have to do your own mordanting process in order to prepare your fibers to put in the pot if you want to do that. So like, again, like I actually, in a lot of workshops, people only get a pretty small amount of the yarn. And for us, I really do try and have people bring home enough yarn for them to work on a little project if they want, as well as a scarf. And then the silk threads are really ideal for embroidery or other things like that.
Okay. And then if there's 2 nights in Oaxaca City. I don't know, at the beginning or the end of the trip, right?
So we start and end our trip in Oaxaca City. So you'll have a hotel room booked at Hotel Diane Zoo is where we have a hotel booked, which is really close to a coffee shop that opens early and central. But we'll stay there the first and last night of the trip. And then in the morning after that, we'll kind of embark our adventure into the mountains. And then on our the day before our last day, we come back through the mountains and we'll go through Teotihuacan del Valle. And that's actually the village of the weavers and dyers, Zapotec weavers and dyers. And we'll actually stop in and visit Vida Nueva, which is the women's collective that we source our wool from. And everybody can learn more about the weaving process as well as the natural dyeing process that they do, as well as the collective's mission to help women who've been not supported and need more like help in the community. So that's sort of where we'll intersect with Oaxaca City and then be in the mountains the other nights.
And if you've never been to Oaxaca before, would you suggest to people like you should add on X many days, and how many days would that be, right? Or like, do you feel like as part of this experience, we would be seeing a lot of the things that one might see, and if you had like one, like one day at the beginning, one day at the end, you would, you know what I mean?
Well,
We highly recommend adding a few days.
let's
Okay.
or to put it more shortly, we moved here.
Okay.
Like it's really hard to see everything. And in fact, we just had Celestino, who is our Zapotec guide, who will be with us also for this trip. He was just over, and he was like, guys, I've been checking out this other area. You've not even seen Oaxaca yet. We're like, oh my God. Been focused here for 7 years. He's like, no, this area. Like,
I'd say if you're able to book,
Yeah.
like have a couple days before or after.
Yeah.
Before, we're at about the Denver altitude too. So if you're here for a few days, it might help to acclimate with the altitude, although it should be fine. Oh, and I need to mention that as well.
Yeah.
And then also the day after, like when our tour ends, check out of the hotel is the day after our last dinner. On the 20th. And on the 20th, if you'd like, our friend and partner, Dr. Samuel Batista Lazo, does a weaving workshop in Teotitlan. And so we have a lot of people last year who signed up to do that weaving day with him. And they were able to also take the wool that we dyed and put it into a small rug that they wove in a day. So that's just something to let everybody know that that's an add-on activity that's available with Sam. He's amazing. They also have a homestay. So if anybody wants to stay in the village or spend a few more days with him, for folks who are sort of into like foot treadle weaving and want to see more of that space, like that would be a good thing. And if you want to come a few days before or stay a few days in the city, there's the textile museum. There's I think just having a day or two to walk around, because we won't really have that time on our trip.
And it's so beautiful. August is so green here. The hills are green, the mountains are green. It's just stunning. And the rainy season is pretty predictable in the sense that it's usually by 4 p.m. it starts raining, and by 9 p.m. you can have the stars out again. And so you kind of have a great day of like, it's pretty cool because it's rainy season, and then you go inside for dinner, a longer dinner, and then you can come back out again and hang out in the city. So yeah, we definitely recommend sticking around or coming early.
How many people do you plan on taking on the trip?
We'll cap this trip at 11 or 12 people.
And it sounds like this is like the fourth time you've done this particular trip. Then yeah.
Well, it's our 4th year, and we've done 2 trips every year with Alissa. So this will actually be our 7th trip with Alissa.
Oh wow.
And I think our 4th one in the Sierra Nortes.
Yeah. And then Alyssa's also going to be joining us for another trip after this one. It's called Nama MX, but it's designed really as a kind of more mushroom science.
More
So
like
I can speak more.
So North American Mycological Association is an organization that exists primarily in Canada and the United States. And having spent some time in Mexico, I've been getting them more interested in coming down to Mexico. And so Alissa will be sticking around on August 24th. We kick off also one day in Oaxaca City, a sort of more of a conference, mycological conference. So it'll be a little more geeky. We're going to have some mycologists and ethnomycologists.
Like mushroom nerds.
More for mushroom nerds and things, but we really wanted Alissa to stick around for 3 weeks because she always has. And it's a really great opportunity to move to another part, also in the Sierra Nortes, actually, and see what mushrooms are coming up in the following week. So there'll be some dye there as well. It won't be the primary focus. But Alissa will be sticking around with us for that tour as well.
One more question. Oh, sorry. I was just going to ask, lastly, like, after this experience, given, we're coming from the States, like what knowledge do you think that we'll be able to take home with us that we could then generalize to the like places that we live in?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and maybe Alissa can speak, like, because we live here, maybe Alissa could speak to some of the takeaways that she's had in the difference of like in the culture here. And
I have not been able to synthesize it into an easy presentation because it's so deep and meaningful. And I think, Kim, you're so articulate that you have a great way of like transferring that knowledge. But I am just, every time I come, I'm blown away. And it's a pretty exceptional experience.
yeah, and I think, and I'll elaborate on that. The reason we like to go into the mountains and introduce people into these different communities is that the way the communities are run, even how they manage their own infrastructure and services and how they grow their own food, how they cook, it is very different from how we live our everyday lives in the United States. And it's slower and it's more simple, and it's really a lot of people kind of leave with if our community all had to if each person and each head of household had to volunteer for our community in order for it to function, how would it look like? If we did an annual gathering where we kind of also we make a note of who comes and who contributes and we acknowledge them in a way that is to encourage all of the community to participate, what does that look like? So it's hard to even explain it if you haven't been here, but that's why we actually really enjoy being in the mountains versus Oaxaca City, because Oaxaca City is more cosmopolitan and has restaurants and has hotels and has tourism, but up in these mountains, like we're the only people staying in a lot of these villages because there's no other capacity. Each of these communities manages their own ecotourism.
Their restaurant,
their hotel. So all the guides, when we go on treks, we pay forest access, we pay guides. So like it's an ecotourism project that the whole community is involved in. As like and that in and of itself is a really interesting thing to take in. So I think like without
Celestino, who I mentioned, is a member of the communities, and he's been guiding for 13 years now, and now teaches other people how to guide, and is actually being taken around to other states in Mexico to teach those states how to do ecotourism the way that the Sierra Nortes are doing it. And he can talk, and he will tell us all about sort of what he calls the University of Life, which has to do with compulsory service within the communities, how communal land ownership works, what that looks like, and then also how it's also still human, which is really fascinating, and I think that the big part for me was like sort of de-romanticizing the idea and really observing this sort of matter-of-fact way of being here. Is like literally, how do you have 200 people work together in a community that supports itself? Like, what is the structure for that? Like brass tacks, like what's the deal? And I think that's, for me, that's been my big takeaway, is just how resilient and how tried and true their democracies are, So I hope that answers your question.
we're like, we'll just leave it at
That
that.
was a great question, Dorothy.
Yeah,
Thank
really
you.
Beth, you had a question, I believe.
Well, I mean, some of them might be better for the one-on-one call because I'm just trying to gauge what the dying is at the one versus potential dying at the second one that Alyssa's at. And then, so we don't bring any mushrooms home with us, right? So the mushrooms we find go into the dye pod.
You'll bring mushroom dyed yarn back, but you won't bring mushrooms back. We'll be collecting for the collective.
Okay, cool, got it. And then, so is it like everything paid all at once, or is it like an initial deposit and then the rest within 30 days, or how does that all work?
Our typical way of moving is taking a payment in full with a refund policy, and 500 of that is non-refundable. We also have payment plans that we're also happy to talk to folks about. We did do sort of this series of payments when we first got started, and it was harder to manage, and people were like, can I just pay you and get it over with? So we offer that as a first option, and we're also happy to talk to folks about payment plans, which you'll just get it automatically deducted for however many months. And Zach can.
Okay.
Yeah.
help with that.
Now we are also the finance department and HR, and we are everything, the two of us.
We're your marketing, we're your customer service.
We're IT, we're design.
So, and then, like, I know it used to be a thing that people would go to Mexico and they would get sick for the first few days. Is that still a thing? Is that like an incentive to go early, other than the altitude?
I've been experiencing it like
Days.
first few days.
I think that like occasionally people will get sick, but it's not necessarily the norm. And in the mountains, we find also that just the
It's a
food
lot
is really
less.
clean and a lot more manageable.
I
And
think
then
that's
just
a lot less than it was back in the day, and we've also learned
Yeah.
mitigating factors as well from doing this for so many years. We have some pretty tried and true ways of helping folks that are having stomach stuff.
But
So I'm old, so I don't even know if it's still a thing.
yeah, and we go to the restaurants that we start and end our dinner with in Oaxaca are really beautiful and serve great
Fine dining,
like
yeah.
fine dining, and we really like trust a lot of the restaurants and the people that we work with.
Yeah.
But we can't promise anything because it's Mexico, but we really do our best. You also mentioned about which one is more dying. MyColores is absolutely going to be more dying.
Focused.
It's going to be more focused. If we like
I don't think anyone's
we'll
going
be
to
we'll
call
be
it fire.
doing we'll be doing maybe a demo at NAMA MX, and then Alyssa will be giving some talks, and then she'll also be helping us as as like a mycologist in the field. But I would say like MyColores is the dying cure, for sure.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, if there are no more questions, we can probably close it out here. As I said, we'll have a recording of this video available probably as soon as tonight. And I will also link that on the fungivore.com webpage for the MyColores. So you can always reference back. And if you forget where it is, you can message us and we'll tell you. And yeah, if you have any other questions that come up, even right after this, feel free to shoot us an email. Direct those questions to me and Kim, and if it's Alyssa specific, we'll pass that on to Alyssa. And all of our emails have my phone number and WhatsApp on there as well. So if you have a burning question, shoot me a text. We like to make ourselves really available for folks. So yeah, thank you guys all for sticking around.
And I'm on email with several of you. So Dorothy, let me know if you want to do a one-on-one. And I'll follow up via email with everybody with the recording and next steps.